Do you see that thumbnail on the left corner, top corner? Don't buy a home. The housing market makes no sense. Why you shouldn't buy right now, Morgan House Sell. Whenever I see a thumbnail like this, I get curious. Do they have some good information that I don't have? Or are they just talking about echo chamber like a fear-mongering message? I had to check it out. So let's look into it together and I'll give you my points.
You said at one point, either in your book or in an interview, that I heard you say, there's no precedent for it being worse than it is now if you're buying your first house.
Yeah, I think that's true. Specifically right now, where home prices are by and large higher than they've ever been, but mortgage rates went from 3% to 8%. That defies all economic logic. It should be in a world where mortgage rates go from 3 to 8%, home prices fall 30%, 40%, 50%. And that hasn't happened yet, at least. So now you're in the situation where, particularly in big cities, LA, San Francisco, Seattle, New York, Boston, the big cities, you're looking at least $1 million for a starter home at an 8% mortgage. It's a completely different universe than anything we've experienced in a lot, because the last time that rates were this high, even in the mid 1990s, home prices adjusted for inflation, like an apples to apples comparison, were a fraction of what they are today. So having home prices where they are today at 3% mortgage rates was still very high. It's still oppressive for a lot of people. To do it at 8% is just like a different world. Now, because of that, very few homes are transacting. There's like the level of sales has just dropped off a cliff. It's the lowest point in, I think, 20 years in terms of the volume of home sales.
Well, let's do a fact check. It says dropped off the cliff. Year over year and compared to 2021, we have about 22.4% less homes sold. About 78% of homes are still selling. If you call that falling off the cliff,
because the prices that are out there are not realistic given the financing options for most people. So a lot of people will say, according to Zillow, my house is worth X million dollars. But that's not actually a mark-to-market price. Like if you actually needed to sell it to someone tomorrow who has an 8% mortgage, the actual market price, the clearing price for that is going to be much lower than you.
So right there, he's wrong. I'm not saying the Zillow price is correct all the time. For example, if there are homeowners who's owning $1 million home, somebody who's richer than that homeowner can buy that house at 8%. And that's what's happening. So what he's saying is not correct.
Three things needs to change. Either incomes need to surge, either mortgage rates need to come down, or home prices need to come down. Like one of those three or a combination of those has to occur. You can't keep this situation that we have going indefinitely.
That's what everybody has been saying. But he's basically asking for things that are not going to likely happen. Home price dropping significantly, mortgage rate dropping significantly. What was the third one? Oh, the income going up significantly. He's asking for some things that are not going to happen. So it's like people who are like this, kind of like a wishy-washy. They want something to happen, and one thing needs to happen because it can continue. But that's what's been happening. Will we have a market crash like 2008? Possibly. But if you live in this like a fear-mongering, or in a way, it doesn't make sense, so you sit on the sideline listening to people like him, you may actually lose.
So would you call it a housing crisis that we're having now? Is there a set of other things going on in the economy that makes this a good or bad time? Like what, if you were going to paint a generalized picture of what's happening now, especially for young people?
What's good right now is that unemployment is incredibly low. Having an unemployment rate below 4%.
So he's using all the data from like certain websites, 10,000-foot view, yet it doesn't understand the local housing market. This is where especially young people need to pay attention. Don't put too much weight on people like him, like try to generalize everything. The local real estate is very different. It's very micro market. You can apply big blanket statements like this. So I'm almost done here.
Other than the late 1990s, and a period in the 1950s, it's lower now than it's ever been. And it's even lower now than it was in the late 1990s that we associate with like the best economy that's ever existed. It's lower now than it was back then. Unemployment rate is crazy, crazy low. If you want a job, jobs are out there.
It actually pisses me off because he thinks the economy is great. The job market is doing great. Lowest unemployment rate. I mean, what kind of world is he living in right now? When everything's like going up in price because of the inflation.
So that's a major tailwind that we have that's propping a lot of this up. If you took today's housing market, very high prices, very high mortgage rates, and you mix that with high unemployment, everything falls apart.
I wish there was YouTube in the 90s. I would love to hear people who are like him back then telling everybody market is going to crash. House is way too expensive. Unemployment is the lowest ever. So don't buy right now. I wish there was a YouTube back in the 90s and 80s.
Today is not the anomaly. One, everything fell to pieces. 2007, absolutely a completely different world.
I wish I bought a home when everything fell into pieces, like he said back then in 2007 and 8. Those homes would have doubled in value by now.
Or 9/11, that just throws things for a loop. So just because I can sit here today and say things are very good, doesn't mean that 30 or 60 days from now, that narrative can't be completely unwound.
Now,
and that's why forecasting is so difficult.
Then why are you forecasting stuff?
now,
And that's why forecasting is so difficult.
Like a general economist like him shouldn't really talk about housing market, just like they're the expert of the housing market. So when I see a thumbnail like this, I mean, I was, whenever I see something like this, I know it's like a clickbait, but I had to check it out. So you don't have to. Don't fall for those headlines, clickbaity stuff. Always talk to your local people, get your local data, and really assess your individual situation. For the young people, especially, time is the leverage. It's kind of like any other investment or, like stock market and other things. Time and leverage and compound effect. In real estate, it's about the appreciation. Buying at the right price and holding it for a long time is one of the best investment strategy. I'm not a financial advisor and this is not a financial advice, but based on the experience that I had, people that I've seen, real estate long-term holding is one of the best things to do. Very stable and very reliable, way more than other assets in my opinion. Thanks for watching and I'll see you next time.